Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we are continuing the Dreams and Visions series.
More dreams and more visions.
Yep. And we're going to talk about Ezekiel. So we know God speaks in all sorts of ways, and we want to share some of those ways. We want to continue to share some of those ways.
Right.
And today, we're going to talk about the prophet Ezekiel. So as many of you... I don't know why it always comes out like that.
Sound very New York.
As many of you may know, Ezekiel actually experiences many visions, like a lot. Mm-hmm. Like the whole book is full of them.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about the first one, which may or may not be the most mind-blowing one. It's important to know that although we can read the book of Ezekiel in one sitting, all of these visions happened in a time span of about 22 years. So it wasn't as back-to-back as it seems when we read it for ourselves.
Right. And you can read it in one sitting, but also there's a lot going on that you probably don't want to read in one sitting. Mm-hmm. But that's,
Yeah. Nor here nor there.
Yeah.
But that's just a warning.
But just so you know.
Yeah. In case you haven't delved into Ezekiel,
there's a lot going on.
I don't think it's one of the things you can. It's like Revelation. Like it's short. Mm-hmm. You can't read that thing in one sitting.
Yeah. And if you do, you're going to be like, what?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Literally, you're going to get to the end and be like, I don't know. I
need to do a round 2. And probably like round 11 and 12. But anyways.
Yes, exactly. It is. And Ezekiel has a ton of visions. And it's interesting. I've only read Ezekiel twice. I was just in Ezekiel recently. It took me a long time because I only did a chapter a day because exactly what she's saying. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, sir. Yeah. I need time. I need commentary. I need prayer. I need the Holy Spirit. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, it's still a great book. But again, yes, it happened over a time span of 22 years. So although it seems like he was having visions every day, that wasn't the case.
Right.
Yeah. We need to make that more realistic.
Right.
So before we get there and we start talking about everything, we wanted to let you know that we linked a Bible Project video that talks about Ezekiel. And honestly, they probably explain it way better than we do, but they're not as funny.
Yeah, not as funny.
So stay here.
Yeah, but like we're funnier.
Yeah, exactly. We don't do cartoons, but we do the jokes.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, please, after you listen to this, please watch those because they'll definitely give you more context.
Yes.
And we also wanted to remind you that we recorded another episode on Ezekiel, and it's called Ezekiel.
Wow.
Yes.
Very creative title there.
It was very creative. And it's from the Prophet series. So I think that episode was like an overall, right? And this is just specific about the visions. Yeah. So you can go back to that. Don't know what episode number it is, but it was early on.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yes, it'll be there. Now with all of our announcements out of the way, right? And if the minutes have been taken, we can go on now. So the first vision that Ezekiel has is very, very long. So we're only going to talk about the first part starting in chapter 1, and these are verses 4 to 21. So here we go. And always in the NLT. As I looked, I saw a great storm coming from the north, driving before it a huge cloud that flashed with lightning and shone with brilliant light. There was fire inside the cloud, and in the middle of the fire glowed something like gleaming amber. From the center of the cloud came 4 living beings that looked human, except that each had 4 faces and 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and their feet had hooves like those of a calf, and shone like burnished bronze. Under each of their 4 wings, I could see human hands. So each of the 4 beings had 4 faces and 4 wings. The wings of each living being touched the wings of the beings beside it. Each one moved straight forward in any direction without turning around. Each had a human face in the front, the face of a lion on the right side, the face of an ox on the left side, and the face of an eagle at the back. Each had 2 pairs of outstretched wings. One pair stretched out to touch the wings of the living beings on either side of it, and the other pair covered its body. They went in whatever direction the Spirit chose, and they moved straight forward in any direction without turning around. The living beings looked like bright coals of fire or brilliant torches, and lightning seemed to flash back and forth among them. And the living beings darted to and fro like flashes of lightning. As I looked at these beings, I saw 4 wheels touching the ground beside them, 1 wheel belonging to each. The wheels sparkled as if made of beryl. All 4 wheels looked alike and were made the same. Each wheel had a second wheel turning crosswise within it. The beings could move in any of the 4 directions they faced without turning as they moved. The rims of the 4 wheels were tall and frightening, and they were covered with eyes all around. When the living beings moved, the wheels moved with them. When they flew upward, the wheels went up too. The spirit of the living beings was in the wheels. So wherever the spirit went, the wheels and the living beings also went. When the beings moved, the wheels moved. When the beings stopped, the wheels stopped. When the beings flew upward, the wheels rose up. For the spirit of the living beings was in the wheels. First of all, that was very repetitive.
Yes, and a lot.
I was like, Ezekiel, we get it.
Yeah.
They moved in any direction. Like, as I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my gosh.
So one move, they all move. Yeah. Got it.
Like, we got it. Move on. But he was he was really trying to make the point.
It's very intricate, right? Like, he gives detail, but it makes me think, like, that must have been a lot to take in, where he's like, I really need you to understand, like, this happened.
It's
and this is how they move.
Hard to visualize.
Yeah, it really is.
It's
and
difficult.
Even when you Google it, like, there's no way that's what it actually looked like, right? But it's just interesting because I can't imagine having a vision of this degree. And even so, I'm sure it was so much more that he was able to, like, express in words.
Yeah, and he's trying to use, again, like you said, the human words to describe a supernatural vision.
And something that's not even, like, that you've ever seen before.
He's like, I need you to know, okay, there was, like, these 4 faces. Yeah. It literally sounds like what it sounds like now when we have dreams, and it's like, yo, I had this dream, and you're trying to explain it to someone.
Right.
But you
I went into this house, but it
can-
wasn't my house. But you know, like that house from this movie?
But I knew that it was my house.
Yeah.
But it didn't look like my house.
Yeah,
but
like,
I knew it.
my
in
mom
the
was
dream.
there,
Like,
but, like, my mom had, like, different hair. But you know what I mean? Like, it was my mom.
it's
And you're like,
no, I wasn't there, Ezekiel. I don't know what you mean.
What talking about? But yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot. So the first thing that's important to note is that Ezekiel was 30 years old when he had this vision. Right. And that's cool because as a priest in exile, he couldn't perform his priestly duties because he was captive in Babylon.
Right.
So instead of serving at the temple, he serves as a prophet of God to the captives in exile.
Right.
So that's really cool. It's
Yeah.
like
He does what he can.
Yeah, like you're not able to do what I've called you to do because of your lineage, because you're in this situation of captivity. But I'm going to use you to do this.
Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Like
I'm
his
still gonna
ministry
use you.
started at 30, just like Jesus.
Yeah.
So that's important to note. This, now we're going to go through the cliff notes of this vision. First, let's talk about these angelic beings, and then we'll talk about the wheels. So the angelic beings, this is a whole category in itself. We're not theologians, right? But we're going to tell you what we found and what we know. Okay. So some angelic beings are identified in the Bible simply as angels, right? And others are described as cherubim and others as seraphim. So those are the 3 categories that we know of these angelic beings that are in the Bible. Yes. So Ezekiel identifies these beings as specifically being cherubim. Thankfully, he used the name so we know.
Right.
What category? What category they fall in. The cherubim are celestial beings that we see all the way back in Genesis as the beings who protect the entrance of the Garden of Eden with the flaming sword. If you remember, there's like the sword that moves in all sorts of directions, like the wheels, right? And the cherubim is holding the sword. We see them throughout the tabernacle in the Old Testament, especially those cherubim that surround the throne of God. And we see them in Revelation as the ones who sing around the throne of God. They sing, holy, holy, holy.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different parts of the Bible that cherubim are mentioned so we can relate to, like, what these beings look like or were.
Yeah, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, these verses say that there were 4 living beings, and in Revelation it also says that there's 4 that are surrounding the throne. So these might be the same people.
Right.
Same beings.
Same beings.
Yes.
Cherubim.
Exactly. So these beings are there, and he's describing them. We know that they look like men or have the appearance of men.
Right.
They also have 4 faces and 4 wings. They had arms of a human under their wings, and their 4 faces were that of a man, a lion, an ox, and an eagle. That in itself, like when you put all the characteristics together, it's just like, ooh.
Yeah, so, like, were the wings coming out of the arms? Were they, like, laid over? Like, again, there's just so much detail to this. but it's hard to like imagine it.
Yeah, the only thing I can imagine well is like the 4 wings, right? And like these were open, and then the bottom 2 were like covering the legs.
Right. Yeah.
Like that you can kind of see because
Yeah.
we see angels in movies or whatever, and usually like they open and close
like
their wings.
if you
and
know,
it's like, oh,
obviously if you know birds, like you've seen birds, like how their wingspan, right?
you
Like
said if you know birds.
if you know birds, y'all know birds. Okay, anyway, if
y'all
you know
seen birds before?
Anyway, they also have feathers and wings. But like it makes me think of that, right? Like if you envision like when the bird, you know, does their wingspan, then it's something similar. Obviously these had more, but
yeah,
I digress.
It works. I appreciate that because it works. I didn't think about that.
Sorry, that only relates to those who know birds.
Exactly. If you don't know birds, we apologize. Maybe we'll use another example later.
We'll try later.
So again, they had 4 faces, right? These men, these angels that have the appearance of men. So it was man, lion, ox, and eagle. That in itself is kind of scary, to be honest.
Yeah.
So some scholars think that each face represents one of the gospels, but there isn't really agreement across the board, like which face represents which gospel, or like which disciple that's the gospels are named out of, or which gospel.
Named after?
Yes, thank you. Which gospel they're named after. So generally, this is like the medium consensus.
Yeah.
So Matthew is thought to represent the man, Mark the lion, Luke the ox, and John the eagle. So there's also some that say it's a representation of those in most power or highest in their group, and its utmost excellence. So the lion is the mightiest of the wild animals. The ox is the strongest of the domesticated animals. The eagle is king of all birds, and the man is the highest of all creation. So like the highest, or the one that's in charge of that specific category that
or like
God
the
created,
best
I guess.
one of that group or something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Represent.
I just had this random thought of like, if there was like a sea creature, it would like be a great white shark or something. I don't know if he's like the king of the ocean, or if it's like the whales, because whales are massive, right?
Like orca or a blue
maybe if it
whale
was like a predator, it would be the shark. But that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
No.
So we're back. But yeah, that's what it's thought to be believed. I think there's a consensus of thinking that yes, the animals represent one of the gospels. There's just not consensus on which one represents which.
Yeah, like which one actually is which one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's definitely way more in these cherubims and in these creatures. Well, yeah, I guess
angelic
creatures. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. But we're going to move on because there's also these 4 wheels, and we want to talk about these. So these wheels are thought to be attached to a chariot, and this is a very supernatural chariot. So Ezekiel says, when we read verse 16, each wheel has a second wheel turning crosswise within it. The beings could move at any of the 4 directions they faced without turning as they moved. The rims of the 4 wheels were tall and frightening, and they were covered with eyes all around. Here's the eyes again. So the wheels have eyes, okay? Like,
that's creepy.
Like, let's just stop right there.
Yeah.
Like,
do they blink? Like these wheels are just like bing, 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 bing.
And then in my head, for some reason, I'm thinking like car wheels, and I'm like, why do they have eyes?
Yeah. Like he literally says that they're frightening.
Yeah, which I agree. Mm-hmm. That would be frightening.
Yeah, we're frightened. We're
frightened just by reading it. Mm-hmm. So imagine having a vision about it. But yeah, they had these wheels had eyes. So this is just something else, and could move in any direction without turning. Mm-hmm. So it seems, according to what Ezekiel says, that as the 4 cherubim moved, so did the 4 wheels. So it's like they were part of it or kind of moved by it, right? Yeah. So they were so closely connected that Ezekiel could write, the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. So somehow the cherubim could control the wheels. So whatever they did, the cherubim did too. It's like they were in sync, basically, and were directed wherever the cherubim went, the wheels went too.
Yeah, which is interesting because it just says that the spirit of the angelic beings was in the wheels. So it's like if they all have the Holy Spirit, then they're in sync.
They're obeying the same spirit. So then they were doing the same thing.
Which is interesting. Like it's cool if you see it as a picture of like, I don't know, like a godly couple
or a community of believers.
Like the body, right? Yeah. Every part of the body has its responsibility, but we're essentially have different ministries, but we're all doing the same thing.
Right. Like if we're all going towards a certain goal, then we're all moving in the same direction.
Yeah. when you put it in like regular language, like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But you look at this and you're like, I'm sorry.
You're like cherubim and a wheel and eyes, and they're all going what? But yeah, so that's what he describes. And then we move into verses 20 and 21, where it mentions that the spirit of the living creatures was in the wheels. Again, just kind of giving a little more context. So the spirit of the living beings was in the wheels. So wherever the spirit went, the wheels and the living beings also went. When the beings moved, the wheels moved. When the beings stopped, the wheels stopped. Again, just emphasizing like they did what the beings did. When the beings flew upward, the wheels rose up, for the spirit of the living beings was in the wheels. So many scholars take this to mean that it is the Spirit of God, right, that gave him direction, and that the mobility of the wheels suggested the omnipresence of God, and that the eye represents his omniscience, and the elevated posture represents his omnipotence. So it's all like representing who God is, and that's why they're all like in sync, everything together at the same. So yeah, there's a lot going on in these visions, and it's really just interesting to see like the types of visions that God gave, right, like Ezekiel. So I think overall, it's just important to note that these visions were given to Ezekiel because he had a divine calling, right? He was a prophet. And so he's a prophet from God, and now he was commissioned to deliver God's message to the Israelites while they were in exile, and he used these visions to do that.
Right, because this was, again, like she said, this was his commissioning vision, right? And I think it's more of, because then his visions, not that this one doesn't have a meaning, but all of the other ones were messages given to Ezekiel to give to the people.
Right.
This one was just for him.
Right.
And it was more of like, I don't know, God showing his mighty power and coming in this supernatural chariot and being like
introducing him to, hey, I'm going to give you a vision, and then these are going to, like, this is the beginning of, right? Like, these messages that I'm going to give you.
Yeah, like God showed up.
So I need to give you something. Yeah. And then set the foundation, basically, for, like, what's to come, which is cool.
God showed up and said, hey, this is weird, but it's going to get weirder.
So I need you to be good with this. Yeah. And understand who I am through this, because I'm going to give you more.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, everything else that was given to Ezekiel, and this is very general, but most of it was like, he calls him Son of Man, which is really cool, right? That points back to Jesus as well. Yes. But he tells him to do stuff, right? Yes. He's like, hey, sleep on your right side, sleep on your left side, make a village of Jerusalem, and use sticks and all this random stuff.
And then he like eats a scroll, right? Yes. And like just things that seem very random, but are very purposeful for what God's trying to like communicate to the Israelites. But it's very like instructive and very specific.
He always needs to do something. Here, it was just like, receive, I guess, and just
like see this,
watch all this cool stuff. I don't know, something else, but we wanted to share it with you. The book of Ezekiel is interesting. It's quite the book. And you just got to experience for yourself. I don't even know what to tell you. If you've never read it, it's like, just peruse it. Take your time. Pray about it. Grab a commentary, pray about it, watch the video. What is it called?
The Bible Project
videos, and you can watch those on all sorts of other books.
And they have them on all the books, and even a bunch of like just Bible stories and stuff like that.
But we wanted to share this vision just because it's quite prominent. It's a weird one, and it's like we need to talk about these eyeballs on these wheels. So we'll be back next week with another one.
We still have more for the series, I guess is what we're trying to say. So you'll hear more about these dreams and visions.
Yes, you will. I think we've done. No, we did one dream, one vision.
Yes.
So we'll see. I don't know. Cliffhanger. Haha. But as always, this is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week. Bye. Bye.